In the early hours of January 3, 2026, at precisely 2:01 local time, the silence over Caracas, Venezuela, was broken by explosions and the roar of aircraft. Operation Absolute Resolve began as U.S. forces launched a coordinated military intervention aimed at capturing President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. More than 150 aircraft advanced from bases across the Caribbean, while precision strikes targeted air defenses at La Carlota Air Base and military facilities surrounding the capital, signaling the start of one of the most dramatic operations in modern Latin American history. As radar systems were neutralized and communication nodes collapsed, large sections of northern Caracas were plunged into darkness. Low-flying helicopters moved beneath radar coverage toward Fuerte Tuna, Venezuela's most heavily fortified military complex. ISR drones and stealth aircraft dominated the skies, ensuring air superiority within minutes. The operation was designed not as a prolonged invasion, but as a rapid, decisive strike focused on leadership capture rather than territorial control. Months before the operation, U.S. intelligence agencies began intensive surveillance of Nicolas Maduro's daily movements. Using pattern of life analysis, analysts tracked his sleeping locations, security routines, and transport habits. By late 2025, intelligence suggested predictable windows of vulnerability, allowing planners to select an exact time and location for the strike, while minimizing the risk of escape or misinformation. Simultaneously, U.S. Special Operations Forces rehearsed assault scenarios in full-scale replicas of Venezuelan military facilities, including Fuerte Tuna. Cyber units penetrated power and communications networks, preparing synchronized disruptions. Naval assets positioned themselves off the Venezuelan coast, while legal coordination between the Department of Defense and Department of Justice framed the mission as an arrest operation tied to narcoterrorism charges, rather than a declaration of war. As air defenses fell silent, helicopters from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment entered Caracas under the cover of darkness. Delta Force commandos breached secured compounds, moving rapidly through corridors, under heavy resistance from Venezuelan and Cuban security forces. Urban fighting erupted near military installations, causing casualties and structural damage in nearby neighborhoods during the intense but brief confrontation. Within approximately 2 hours and 30 minutes, U.S. forces located and detained Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores. Both were restrained, extracted by helicopter, and transported offshore to a U.S. Navy vessel. By around 4:30 local time, major combat operations had ceased, and U.S. units began withdrawing, leaving behind a stunned capital and a power structure suddenly without its central figure. Following the operation, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez assumed the role of acting president as Venezuela entered a period of political shock. International reactions were sharply divided, with some governments condemning the intervention as a violation of sovereignty, while others framed it as a blow against organized crime. Civilian casualties and infrastructure damage intensified humanitarian concerns inside the country. Globally, Operation Absolute Resolve triggered debates over international law, executive war powers, and the precedent of capturing a sitting head of state through military force in the United States. Congress argued over the limits of presidential authority, while energy markets and regional security calculations shifted across Latin America. The operation's legacy remains defined not only by its speed and precision, but by the unresolved questions it left behind. Whether resolved through trial, plea agreement, or prolonged detention, the case set a powerful precedent. It demonstrated that political authority does not guarantee immunity from legal consequences, especially in an era of cross-border law enforcement. For Venezuela, the outcome carried symbolic weight rather than immediate resolution, while for the international system, it marked a turning point in how justice, power, and sovereignty intersect in the modern world. After his capture, the former Venezuelan president entered a legal ordeal unlike any. Transferred under heavy security to the United States, he was presented before a federal court where long-standing indictments related to narcotics trafficking, money laundering, and alleged links to armed criminal networks were formally activated. For a man who once wielded absolute power, the courtroom became a place of confinement procedure and relentless scrutiny. Detention conditions were strict and isolating, with limited communication and constant legal oversight. His defense team challenged jurisdiction, arguing violations of sovereignty and international law, while prosecutors portrayed him as the central figure in a transnational criminal enterprise. Each hearing deepened the psychological and political toll as global media coverage transformed his personal suffering into a symbol of the risks faced by leaders accused of crimes beyond their borders.